Sources of history. A number of objects used by ancestors still exist. Some inscriptions from the past have been recovered. Sources like these help us to understand our history. History can also be learned through custom and tradition, folk arts, folk literature, as well as historical documents. All these known as sources of history. These are three types of material source, written source, and oral source. Material source: man uses a variety of things in day-to-day life. They are known as artifacts. Artifacts used by humans in the past provide us valuable information about the life in the ancient times. We can decide the period of ancient artifacts like earthen pots by studying the shape, color, and designs on the ancient potsherds. The ornaments and their artifacts throw light on social interaction. We get information about the diet of people from the remains of food grains, seeds, and bones of animals. On excavations, also we find the remains of houses and buildings built in different historical periods. We also find ancient coins and seals. All these give us information about human activities in the past. All such artifacts, articles, monuments, or their ruins are called material sources of history. Food. Do you know food grains do not last long? They get easily infested and turn into powder. In ancient times, people used to roast food grain before grinding them. If a few grains got charred while roasting, they were thrown out. Such charred grains can remain intact for a very long period. During excavation, such charred grains can be recovered. When these are inspected in the laboratory, we come to know what grain it is. Do you know written sources of history include inscription carved on temple walls of rock cut caves, and rocks inscription on copper plates, pots and bricks, and on writing sheets made from palm leaves and birch bark, etc. Written sources: the Stone Age people have recorded many events and expressed their emotions in painting on rocks. It was only after thousands of years man learned the art of writing. In the beginning, humans used symbols and signs to record the thoughts and ideas. However, it took thousands of years for a script to develop from these. In the beginning, man wrote on potsherds and big bricks using pointed objects. He also used boja tree bark to write on. As his experience and knowledge increased, he began to write in different ways. He began to record the events that took place around him. Accounts of the proceeding of royal court were also written systematically. Many rulers had the orders, judicial decisions, donations, etc. inscribed on stone, on copper plates, or over a period of time. Many forms of literature developed. They include books on religious and social subjects, plays, poetry, travelogues, and scientific works. All this literature helps us to understand the history of the various historical periods. These sources are known as written sources of history. Do you know Bhoja Patra means writing sheets made from birch or bark tree? Bhoja is the Sanskrit name of the birch tree. Birch trees are found in Kashmir. Oral source: Ovis, folk song, folk tales, and similar literature is passed on from generation to generation by word of mouth. This literature is not in written form. Its authors are unknown. This type of literature preserved by oral tradition forms of oral sources of history. Sources of ancient Indian history. Material sources. Material sources are divided into two parts: artifacts and structural remains. Artifacts are rock paintings, pottery, terracotta objects, beads, ornaments, sculptures, metal objects, coins, and weapons. Structural remains are caves, houses, stupas, rock cut caves, temples, churches, mosques, pillars. Written sources of history are inscription on Harappan seals, Vedic literature, Mesopotamian clay tablets, manuscripts, copies of Mahabharata and Ramayana, Jain and Buddhist literature, writing of Greek historians, travelogues by Chinese travelers, books on grammar, Purans, and inscriptions. Oral sources. The Vedic, Buddhist, and Jain literature of ancient India was preserved by oral tradition. It is now available in the written form. Even so, the oral tradition is still alive. When oral compositions are used for history writing, they are included in the oral sources. Sources of ancient Indian history. The ancient period of Indian history was extended from Stone Age to the 18th century CE. We learn about the Stone Age period of Indian history through archaeological excavations. Since scripts had not developed at that time, no written sources are available. However, information about the ancient period from 15,000 BCE onwards can be derived from Vedic literature. In the beginning, Vedas were not in written form. The ancient Indians had developed the technique of memorizing and reciting them. The Vedas were not written down later, The Vedas and the post-Vedic literature form an important source of ancient Indian history. It includes the Brahmanas, the Upanishads, the epic Ramayana and Mahabharata. The Jain and the Buddhist literature, plays, poems, stone and pillar inscription, travelogues of fortune travelers, etc. We also learn about the ancient Indian history through material sources like archaeological remains, ancient monuments, and coins found in excavations. Precaution to be taken while writing history. It is necessary to take precautions while writing a history. The written document cannot be said authentic just because it is old. It needs to be examined critically as to who wrote it, why, and when it was written. The conclusion drawn on the basis of various genuine documents have to be cross-checked and corroborated with one another. Such a critical analysis is very important in the writing of history.